has this weekend been? Has Texas, for recruits wanting to come, has Texas said come one, come all? Have they had to cap it? What is the latest, and maybe one or two or three players you think are most important for this recruiting weekend?
Yeah, so I think to an extent, yeah, they're probably going to have to to cap it a little bit. It doesn't seem like it when you're looking at the visitors list of who all is coming. This is going to be the biggest recruiting event before whatever National Signing Day is come December 4th. I still haven't even gotten a clear answer if we're having a National Signing Day on December 4th, just because the NCAA just passed that ruling to where, it's now just financial aid agreement. So, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of ceremony thing, but at what point is this just, where do they enroll come January? Like so I will say, like, I don't think there's going to be a bigger recruiting weekend than this weekend in terms of this season, with in terms of just sheer star power. We have our list posted at Hornets 24/7. Jordan has been doing a good job of keeping track of that. But I think, I could name a lot more than just three, but I think three that stand out the most to me in terms of uncommitted guys. And he was kind of a late ad, or he was a late ad. We put him on the list this past weekend. Justice Terry, who's a 5-star defensive lineman from Georgia. And he's an interesting one. He's Texas didn't really start getting involved with him until like the last few weeks. And he has an interesting past. He's been committed to Georgia, he's been committed to USC, and now he's uncommitted. And the overall feeling towards his recruitment is he's going to end up back at Georgia, which I think that's a fair assessment for any top ranked recruit in the state of Georgia. Is you'll probably stay home. But he's going to give Texas a look, and it's going to be an official visit. We confirmed that as well. So, he's going to have the, full red carpet treatment, not just show up, get your tickets to the game, see the game, and leave. He's going to be there for the weekend. So we'll see if Texas can put a dent into his recruitment. I don't think, entering the weekend, they're on the outside looking in, no doubt. But the fact that they're getting him in, if they can get him in, have success against Georgia, maybe that's something that really piques his interest, because, you look at this past weekend, I think this was kind of like a big kind of coming out party for the interior defensive line. I mean, all those guys had really good games. So maybe if they can keep that trend rolling and, have success against Georgia, maybe that's something that piques his interest. So Justice Terry out of Manchester, Georgia, he's, top of the list in terms of most interesting. Have to mention Michael Terry, the 5-star athlete from San Antonio. He's going to be back on campus. And I think he's getting closer and closer to an announcement. I feel like we've been saying that since, late July. It's coming. I think it's coming soon. I don't think he's going to wait until December. So he'll be on campus this weekend. Maybe that's the type of atmosphere that, prompts you to want to do something. I don't know. We don't have any. We don't know if anything's happening yet, but obviously we think he's going to pick Texas. That's our prediction. So anytime he's at Texas, we're going to keep a close eye on Michael Terry, the 5-star athlete. And then you could go a handful of different directions. Javion Hilson, borderline 5-star edge rusher from Florida. He was supposed to be in town for the Mississippi State game. Obviously, the hurricane, obviously hurt efforts into travel. So he wasn't able to make it out for that, but he's supposed to be in town. And he's recently, I guess it's not really recent anymore, but in the last, month, he decommitted from Florida State. You look back at his recruitment, he officially visited Texas in June. After that visit, we talked with him, and, he was saying it's a Florida State Texas battle for his recruitment. So, now that he's decommitted from Florida State, by default, you would think Texas is the team to beat. And, we've checked the sources, and that's kind of the feeling there as well. So Javion Hilson from Florida. So some out-of-state guys, in-state guys, I think you'll see the majority of Texas's commits back in town. Jonah Williams is taking his official visit. We're going to see another official visitor in Joseph Mbachu, who's kind of a really raw talent, defensive lineman from the state of Georgia, goes to high school with Texas commit Nick Brooks. But this is his first year playing football. He's been a basketball player. He didn't start playing football till this past spring. He's, I think, 6'4", 275. So just really raw, certainly a guy that's could probably has the highest ceiling of any prospect in this class, just because you just don't really know, but he has kind of all those athletic traits. So that's kind of in a nutshell. And then there's going to be a lot of underclassmen. But yeah, those official visitors, Myron Charles is big to get back on campus, the Texas defensive line commit from Florida. He's a guy that's still getting heavily recruited from all over. And KJ Lacey's going to be in town, the quarterback commit, Diabell. So both your future quarterbacks in town. So really it's a who's who list. It's going to be a doozy to cover just because there's going to be so many kids.
Hope those guys can get in because the airport's going to be crazy this weekend. All right, Hank. Dalton McCutchen flips from Florida State to Texas. Lucas, Texas product, 4-star wide receiver to join Khalil Lockett and Jamie French for Chris Jackson and crew. Talk about how this all went down.
Yeah, so this was one. It was interesting. So obviously the receiver talk has always in this class has been Decorian Moore, Khalil Lockett, Jamie French. And then there's kind of been this subgroup, and I shouldn't even say they're subgroup. They're very highly talented kids, but Dalton McCutchen, Kelshawn Johnson, handful of other guys. But we saw Dalton McCutchen commit to Florida State back in July, and the thought was, Texas wasn't pushing for him. They didn't want him. And I think maybe to an extent, maybe there wasn't a heavy press, but I don't think there was an opportunity for him to commit to Texas at the time. I think, had he called and said, I'm coming, I think there probably would have been a spot for him. That's just me kind of from what I've gathered. But I will say, he committed to Florida State, and I was told, I checked with some sources that, he was on the phone with Texas pretty quick after that, just saying, still, able to be recruited. Nothing's done till it's done, come signing day. So that kind of, when I heard that, it was kind of like, oh, well, let's keep an eye on Dalton McCutchen. We'll see what happens down the line. Obviously, Florida State has just been having a season of just a terrible season, not having any success. Their commits seem to just be, jumping off, whenever they can. Texas has benefited from that with Myron Charles. Might benefit from again with Kevin Wynn, the defensive lineman, but Dalton McCutchen was a guy that they invited out for the Mississippi State game, got him on campus, and I think just everything we've been writing it, everything just started pointing to Texas. It made sense, especially if they were going to take a third high school wide receiver, which obviously they are. But yeah, so I think just the continued communication and talking with sources, there's people inside the program that think Dalton McCutchen is like right up there on par with like Decorian Moore and Khalil in the state. Like they think he's that good. And so that kind of explains, the continued pursuit from them. So, a big time get, he's a guy that, he's been a multi-year starter at Lovejoy. I actually talked to Todd Dodge about him, who's now the head coach at Lovejoy, took over this past offseason. And he was just saying, he can't say enough good things about this kid in terms of just his work ethic, his dedication to the craft and, everything he puts into the game and how serious he is about it. And I think that kind of goes, it's kind of a theme with the receiver commits with Khalil, Dalen and Jamie. All those kids aren't going to like blow you away with like speed or like, breakaway stuff. They're just all really sound fundamental receivers. And they all just they do kind of the little things really well. And obviously, they've got speed too, but they're not, Decorian Moore types in terms of, they'll outrun you. But I think they just they do all those things well. And so, and then obviously they have enough of, they still meet those criteria you need in terms of, speed and all that. So, yeah, I think he's a big get. And, I would venture to think Texas is done recruiting wide receivers from the high school level. But I will say, I checked with Kelshawn Johnson, who's committed to Texas A&M. He told me he's still coming in this weekend for an unofficial visit for the Georgia game. So, maybe they'll, if nothing else, maybe, make A&M a little bit nervous if you're the Texas coaching staff, but certainly, big time playmaker, they like to recruit speed. And, if you want a speed guy in the class, Kelshawn Johnson would be your guy. So we'll see if anything happens there with that as well.